everybody, and welcome to Harris County Master Gardener's Green Thumb program. My name is John Schaefer, and seated next to me are two experts in gardening. And I'm really excited. We're going to talk to both of them today. We're going to get a presentation from Andrew all about spring gardening. Of course, Carrie Calloway has done some research in the field. We're going to get to see all of that. I want to remind everybody that we have Master Gardeners watching and are monitoring the chat live right now. So if you have a question, just go ahead and type that in the chat, and we will get that answered by a Harris County Master Gardener. Also, I want to remind everybody that we have another program coming up next month at the same time, third Tuesday of the month, 11 o'clock. That's going to be Weeds in the Garden with Maggie Zamora. So let's get started right now. This is all about spring vegetable gardening. Andrew, please take away with your presentation.
Hello, Harris County. My name is Andrew Johnson. I am a volunteer with the Harris County Master Gardener AgriLife Extension Program. And today we're going to be talking about spring gardening. Harris County is a unique place that we get to grow vegetables all year round, but being prepared for our spring season is important. And today we're going to talk about some of the vegetables and things you need to know when gardening. Many people wonder, why should I garden? For many people, it's a passion. For other people, it's because the flavor is undeniable. Other people, it's an opportunity to create sustenance for their family, learn a little bit about nature around you, but more importantly, enjoy some sunshine, get some sunshine, vitamin D, some therapy, and candidly, it's great for your mental health as well as your physical well-being. If you ever have the opportunity, I would recommend coming down and seeing us at our Genoa Friendship Garden, which is in Houston, just kind of outside Pasadena, and you'll have an opportunity to see what grows locally, learn from other Harris County Master Gardeners, and get ideas, tips, and tricks of things that we have going on in the area to make sure that you are doing the best way you can to grow the best fruits and vegetables in Harris County. Topics that we're going to be talking about today are just kind of general guidelines and review. Some of them are my favorite vegetables to grow, fruits and vegetables, seed starting, planting, and probably won't have time to get on some of these other topics, but we'll cover all sorts of gardening ideas that will help you be an effective gardener here in Harris County. It's important to know that we have 4 growing seasons that are distinct throughout the year. We don't have the standard 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, that most places have, but we have what we kind of described as 2 warm seasons, a cool season, and a hot season. The best time to grow everything is starting typically in the end of our winter, around February, and already getting ready for our first warm season, which runs between March to May. With Harris County Master Gardener Program, we have all sorts of information. We have calendars that will tell you what to grow when and at the ideal times. There's always a fringe area that you will have success, and that information can be found on our website on like this program and graph shown here. My favorite time of year is the first warm season that happens to coincide with bacon, lettuce, and tomato season. That is one of my absolute favorite things to grow, and is one of the first things that got me started in gardening over 20 years ago. It is essential that you start your tomatoes early, and that we're talking, if you're doing it home from seeds, January, February, because the tomatoes are going to be going in the ground as early as the end of February, beginning of March. It's imperative that you do this because it will give your tomatoes enough time to grow and produce before it gets into our hot season, where your tomatoes are going to say, no, thank you. I have zero interest in producing any fruits and vegetables. I am going to basically sustain to survive because this is just too hot for me. There are all different types of tomatoes that you can grow, and whether that is your big beefsteak tomatoes that I mentioned that you're going to use with your BLTs, there's other types of tomatoes, cherry, grape, that will give you a little bit more of give you a little bit longer season. That season can depend also on what type of tomatoes there are. There's indeterminate and determinate. Those are the 2 main varieties. The best way to understand those 2 different varieties is indeterminate, meaning that that plant is going to produce fruits and vegetables over an extended period of time. It is not determined. Those are going to be typically your smaller tomatoes, your cherries, your grapes, whereas your bigger ones, your celebrities, your beefsteaks, they are going to be your determined. They're typically a little bit shorter and bushier and are going to produce over a 2 to 4 week window and then stop. It's important when doing cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes that you have a trellis, that you have a way for those plants to grow up and get access to more sunshine as well as more usable space. It is important they have lots of sun and cool evenings. In the summertime, it can get a little bit hot, so shade cloths are something that as get to the end of the warm season, that might be something that you want to consider. Tomatoes are heavy feeders. That means that you're going to need a very nutrient-rich soil and ensure that you're fertilizing with organic fertilizer throughout there. That way you have the best flavor possible.
Right now, we're going to shoot over to McGovern Centennial Gardens, where Carrie is going to be talking with Harris County Master Gardener Teresa C. all about irrigation systems.
Talk to me a little bit about irrigation and water harvesting.
Well, irrigation is really important. So with container gardening, you need to make sure you have drain holes in those containers. But in raised beds, you automatically have drainage, so you don't have to worry as much about water pooling up. But you want to make sure that you're able to get water easily to your garden bed. The easier it is to garden, the better luck you're going to have doing that gardening and more productive. So drip irrigation is always the best. Soaker hoses work just fine. If you'll notice these wonderful gardens here, they even have a hose at each garden bed, so they can even hand water. Rainwater is the best kind of water. It's the perfect pH for your vegetable gardens. There's a pH scale that goes from 1 to 14, and we want things to be slightly acidic, which is about 6.0 to 6.5. And that's right at what our rainwater is in this area. So if you can collect rainwater, you'll be doing even better.
So a little bit about fall gardening and different vegetables you can grow during this season. What do you recommend, or what are some dates? I think we do have, in fact, a chart that you can visit our Harris County Master Gardener's site and kind of get more information about that. But talk a little bit about what you can grow right now.
Okay, so yes, I love to grow those vegetables, and no matter how long I get to garden, I still check that chart. Every season I'm checking, do I have this date right? So right now we're thinking about putting those tomatoes in, which is, we still want to wait a little bit because we're in February still. So later in February, March, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, you can be thinking about squash. A little bit later, you can think about okra. Okra wants it to be a little bit warmer. But there's so many vegetables. Check on that chart, and like we all do,
Yes.
and see exactly what you can be planting.
Yeah, and you can find this chart at any local farmer's market that an Ask a Master Gardener table is at, and or stores like Buchanan's, local stores, or simply going on Texas A&M AgriLife Extension's website, and you can find that chart right there on that site, right?
Absolutely.
Something else that we like to grow in the springtime is cucumbers. Just like tomatoes, they like to grow tall and high. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, it'll allow them to give you more space to grow a little bit shorter plants on the ground or on your garden bed. And two, they are vines. They will grow up, and it'll make it easier access for when you're trying to harvest. A big problem with cucumbers that we have here in Houston due to the humidity is powdery mildew. And one way that you can help avoid that is by getting the leaves and the plant away from the ground where moisture tends to hide, and it allows that powdery mildew to thrive. When you have it growing on a vine, that allows air and ventilation to help reduce those insects, diseases, bugs, etc., and keep your plants healthy and growing vertically. Sweet peppers. These are a great way to add a little bit spice to your family, and they certainly don't have to be hot or spicy. We're talking about sweet peppers here, and they come in all colors, shapes, and sizes. People sometimes ask, well, what kind should I grow? Well, what kind do you like to eat? You will find through the Harris County Master Gardeners program, we sell fruits and vegetables. The products that they are going to have are going to be ones that are great for this area, that are made for our climate, and are going to resist the pests, diseases, bugs, etc., that are known to plague some home gardens in Harris County. I personally don't like starting them from seed. I like going to reputable nurseries in the area. I try to avoid big box stores. I know the nurseries have local knowledge of the area. They have a little bit more tender love and care given into their plants. And there's something that I like to buy as seed, as starters, rather than from seed. If you are going to get from seeds, make sure you're buying it from a reputable source and that has germination rates, as well as someone that is going to offer you some type of guarantee on their productivity. Those seeds that from last year's peppers, I don't recommend using those. Make sure you're using the fresh and the best. Beans, green beans, yard beans, black-eyed beans, garbanzo beans, all different types of beans, just depending on what you want. There are bush as well as pole. Bush are going to be a little bit lower to the ground, where pole beans, you're going to want some type of trellis so you can use that vertical space. A lot of people use raised bed gardens here in the Houston area just due to the non-favorable soil conditions. And when doing that, you have limited on space. So it's imperative that you use as much of the vertical space as possible. They're going to like full sun, an average amount of water, and just know that the bush beans are going to be similar to a determinate tomato where they're producing all at once. That being said, pole beans, they're going to grow a little bit more like an indeterminate, where they're going to grow up a little bit taller and they're going to produce over extended harvest time. But it is important that as they produce, you keep picking. If you keep picking, typically that's telling the plant to keep producing, and that way you have fruits and vegetables for that much longer. Carrots. Carrots certainly come with some nuance. A lot of times people struggle with carrots for a variety of reasons. The biggest one is really just the condition of the soil. Carrots are quite easy, but it's really in the prep work, getting the soil prepared for them to grow properly. If they interact with anything, whether it's a rock, a stick, or anything, as they're trying to creep down into the soil, you're going to end up with stubby or kind of silly looking carrots that maybe look like a pair of legs rather than the standard traditional carrot. One method that one of my friends recommended to me is where they actually put tubes in their garden and filled those tubes up with a mix of sand and compost. That way it had a protected cylinder for that carrot to go straight down and not be interrupted. He's had the best success, and I've also used this and highly recommend it because there's nothing worse than spending your time and energy on something that doesn't produce. Harris County Master Gardeners likes to always recommend things and products as well as methodology that are scientific-based information, as well as stuff that is going to make sure that makes your life that much easier. Something that people also do is they tend to overseed with carrots, meaning that they have put too many seeds in the ground next to each other. If you do that, that's okay, but make sure after the carrots start growing that you thin them out, that you remove some of the ones that are right next to each other. That will give the chance for those carrots to spread out and grow and not be competing for resources with their neighbors. Not all parts of the carrot are edible too. Some people just think of the standard part as the only edible part. Use the top for different salads, stews. It's all edible. And we recommend you using every part of the carrot as you can, and whatever gets left over to waste, put that in your compost pile. Summer squash. Summer squash is a fan favorite. Summer squash and zucchini kind of fall within the same category. Most people don't realize that squash and zucchini are vines. And that is important that you actually stake them in the ground, get a stake in them, and you train them, meaning you tie them up and allow them to grow vertically. You can trim off some of the lower leaves, and by doing that, you're going to be fighting the number one enemy of zucchini and squash in Harris County, and that is vine borers. Vine borers go in the vine and end up kind of basically sapping the life force out of that. When doing that, you're also helping prevent against some of the powdery mildew that you have with cucumbers. It's letting airflow underneath there. It's not getting wet by the sprinkler. It's all going to promote good things. One of the things that most people don't realize is that pollination also becomes an issue. Say, well, I got a lot of flowers, but I'm not producing. There are ways that you can actually self-pollinate if you don't have a lot of bees, bugs, insects in the area that are doing that job for you. There's all sorts of of videos out there. You can reach out to Harris County Ask a Master Gardener program, and they'll give you tips and tricks on ways of going about doing that. One thing to be considered about to avoid a lot of the nuance, to avoid issues with summer squash, is having a window. I don't let my summer squash go very much past May 15th, and then I won't put them in the ground until about September 15th. That hot summertime that we have here in Houston is rampant with bugs, and you're fighting nature. And we try to do things that works with nature, with the surroundings that we have, rather than trying to grow something when it's not in its ideal timing. Onions. Onions are relatively easy, and there's all different ways that you can start those, whether it's from seed or from bulb. I recommend most people go to a local nursery and get bulbs from there. But I also, when I'm at the grocery store buying organic green onions, I cut off the bottoms, put them in some water, start a new thing, and then I can put that in my yard or in my garden. Onions also act as a natural insecticide. They are going to prevent other bugs and insects from interfering with some of the young plants in there. So feel free to go ahead and plop a few onions sporadically throughout your garden this spring, and they will do a great job of being a natural insecticide. Hot peppers. Boy, can we grow hot peppers here. And that has to do with the hot temperatures of our hot season in the summer. You're going to start them in the spring. They'll start producing near the end as it changes from our warm season to our hot season. And it's essential that you get them lots of water throughout the hot temperatures. They're going to like lots of sun, and they like a moist soil, but certainly not soggy. So depending on what you're growing and how much, be sure to keep it fertilized and keep them updated with compost, because that will allow them to keep producing all the way through not only our hot season, but into our warm season. One of my favorites is the Tabasco. That thing will grow as big as you possibly think, and it turns into more of a tree by the end of the year. There are some people that recommend you can, if you really had a great producing plant and you love the flavor, you can trim it and cut it way back in the fall, dig it up, put it in a pot, and put it in the garage over winter time, and then replant it. I've had varied success. It's just a matter of what your personal preference is. I prefer to start with new pepper plants at the end each season, and then that way I know that it's got good health, good soil, and it's going to do best for that time of the season. Lettuce. One of the most important things about lettuce is getting your seeds from a reputable place. That is where they have germination rates, and they have information that you know that the time and energy that you're using to create that goes from there. Most people have a tendency to let that salad head get to a solid head. My recommendation is, if you're doing this at home, pick a few leaves from various types of lettuce throughout, and then that lettuce is going to last that much longer. As temperatures start to rise, it will want to bolt, and that means typically going to seed, and the flavors within the lettuce aren't going to be as good. But if you're able to continue to pick a little here and there, you're going to have that lettuce that's going to last months rather than just growing and only using it for 1 week. Peas, snap peas, snow peas, shelling peas, all good options here. I personally and my family love snow peas. They are delicious, they're easy, and they got a little bit of a snap to them when you eat them fresh. You're definitely going to want to use vertical space here. Use different methodology, whatever you have. It doesn't need to be fancy, but get those things growing vertically, and they will be happy, and they will also produce more. They're depending on the type, there can be as low as 2 feet to as high as 8 feet. That's where you're going to really want to do a little research, or reach out to your Harris County Master Gardeners and ask them about it, and they'll give you some information on what that plant will most likely do. Cilantro. This certainly has some people divided. There's those of us that love it and other people that think it tastes like soap. It might not be for you, but it is something that is going to be better off at the beginning part of the spring because they like the cooler temperatures. You can allow that to extend your season by keeping them in the shade of a larger plant. For instance, a eggplant, a tomato. They're going to kind of have an extended season if they're not completely in the sun as your garden grows. Many people don't realize that the difference between the edibleness of the actually stalks of cilantro. Talk to most chefs, they'll tell you that the most flavor is actually in the stem and not in the leaves. Bok choy, also known as pak choy, grows quickly and is kind of multi-use. The leaves can be used in all sorts of dishes, but then the white stem part as well is very similar to a celery. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 on this one. And once again, I recommend picking a few stalks at a time. That will extend the life of your bok choy much longer, and it'll allow you to enjoy it in a variety of different things in times rather than just at once. Long beans. This is something you want to start indoors and when it is above 50 degrees. Once they start to get a little over 1 foot long, then you can bring them outside, and they're going to want partial sun. So that morning sun, maybe some afternoon shade. And once again, it is going to be a vertical climate. You want to keep the soil moist, but not soggy. So make sure there's some sand or some type of substrate that will allow that to drain quickly. It is important that you do sequential, any type of beans is you do sequential planting, meaning that if today's day one, in a few weeks from now, you'll plant another set and another set. That way you have beans throughout the season and not just at one time. Ginger. This is something that most people don't realize how easy it is to grow and what a difference in flavor it is that you get from locally versus what you can in the store. And the funny part is the best way to grow ginger is go to your local grocery store, find an organic option, and then you can take that and put it right in the soil. Most people, my recommendation is just to forget about it, and in about 4 to 6 weeks, you'll probably see little sprouts start shooting up. If you happen to have a banana tree growing in your yard, these ginger and bananas are great companion plants. They love basking in the shade of a banana tree, and they'll do great together. Very similar to ginger is the turmeric. That has similar properties, same idea. Go to the grocery store, pick some up, and what turns it as a one stalk, you will then have a whole harvest of it by the end of the season. I like to dry mine out and use it for Asian dishes when I'm cooking. It also has a whole lot of other medicinal benefits. I highly recommend you do a little research, as it is definitely got superpowers. Sweet potato, one of my favorites, and the amount of variety that is out there is incredible. The best part about sweet potatoes is it's easy. It also does very well to start in the spring, goes through our very hot summers, and then lasts until the fall. So that way you can use sweet potatoes for your Thanksgiving dinner. The good thing about sweet potato is it doesn't require a lot of effort from the gardener. Bad news is it takes up a lot of space. Just a few plants will take over a garden bed very quickly. Also, keep in mind, these sweet potatoes are growing underground. So that means whatever area or container potentially that you're using it in, you're going to have to dig all that out in order to harvest those sweet potatoes. So keep that in mind when you are planting those. They are heavy feeders and they need lots of sun and lots of water. My recommendation as well is don't just wait for the sweet potatoes. The leaves and everything else on that plant are edible. There are tons of good recipes out there that you can learn how to use the different parts of the sweet potato. Once you've harvested them, you will need to allow them to cure. So you're going to store those in a cool, dark place for, I believe, a couple weeks before you're going to actually want to eat them. Fruit trees. One of my favorite parts about living in Harris County, besides having year-round fruits and vegetables, is the diversity of fruit trees. Apple, avocado, banana, fig. One of my favorites are some of the citruses, albeit they're not very big fans of some of the cold snaps and freezing temperatures that we have. That's why I typically are going to grow those ones in pots versus putting in the ground. There are varieties like kumquats and loquats, that persimmons, that are going to do great in the ground. But do your little research, find out what's going to be best for you, as well as what's going to work best in your environment. A lot of times homes have different microclimates that they have the ability that you might be successful versus somebody else or neighbor that you heard about. One natural one that I highly recommend people look around for, you might not need to get it at your home, is mulberries. They grow like wildfire around Harris County. And I can assure you there's somebody that would love for you to come pick their mulberries for them instead of them dropping all over their cars and making a mess of their sidewalks. Peanuts, pecans, pecan trees are big business here in the state of Texas. It is not for the faint at heart because pecan trees get huge. There's a lot to it besides just putting a tree in the ground, but just harvesting, etc. So if you already have it on your property, great. Alternatively, if you plant one, it's going to be a while before you harvest. So keep that in mind. One of my favorite blueberry bushes are the blueberries. There are farms throughout the area that you can actually go and do blueberry picking. If you're looking for a fun family activity, you got lots of hands, recommend doing that together. Find some friends and family that are different heights than you are too, because little kids can get underneath the bushes, and your tall 6'4" friends, they can reach up high and pull things down, and you guys will have pounds and pounds of blueberries before you know it. Bring them home, make blueberry pie, use them as you can, but the best thing to do, because we usually get a couple 5-gallon buckets in my family, is we freeze them, and we use them throughout the year, and we're just running out when it's time to go picking again. And that window typically is going to be sometime in May to June. That's the best time for blueberry picking. And typically, if you sign up for one of the farms, they'll give you notices when to do it. As you might recall, it's a little bit warm that time of year, so make sure when you go out and do the picking, go as early as you can, get out there for a couple hours, and then get home, because it does get hot, sticky, and sweaty when you're out there in the blueberry farms. Some other natives that we have: clovers, chop drops, wildlife attractors, and grasses. I'm a big fan of using clover as a potential cover crop, and there also are aquatics with duckweed and azaleas. When you are going to be doing some of your own, you don't really want to just buy plants from your local nursery. You can get seeds. When you're doing seeds, make sure you go to a reputable source, somewhere that is offering organic seeds and that have some type of information on there with the germination test rate. Those are the type of companies that you want to do business with. Those are the ones that you're going to have success. Nothing worse than spending all that time and money, whether it's soil and your time, putting all these seeds in different containers, and then nothing happens. So it's a good idea that if you can, use a bag, a paper towel, get those seeds a little bit started, and you'll be on your path to success. There are some theories out there about different inoculants that can certainly help expedite that and give you the best version and the best success. But at the end, always reach out to Harris County, ask a master gardener, and they'll be able to give you resources and information on that. Pause. All right, starting indoors, seeds, 3 weeks or more before it's actually needed. And that is going to vary depending on what item or what plant you want to grow. Some of them prefer a little bit more time, some of them a little bit less, some of them are going to be direct seed. That information will be available to you, and there should be, certainly from a reputable seed source. It's important to know that there are plants that will want, the bigger you get them before they go outside, the better off they're going to be. It's just a matter of personal preference and also the type of plant that there is. Be sure to harden off the plants slowly before you take them from indoors to outdoors. That's exposing them to a little bit of sun more each day before they're tolerant of the sun, because if you just go straight indoors to outdoors, you're going to be disappointed, as those aren't going to make it.
Once again, we're going to go back to Montgomery Centennial Gardens with Carrie Calloway and Teresa C. And they're going to talk about how to cover your crop during a frost.
So, Teresa, can you tell me a little bit about this coverage and possibly what you suggest when it comes to the freeze or when it gets really cold during the season? We're kind of stepping out of it, but we're still kind of in it, right?
We are. Yeah, we just had another light freeze 2 nights ago. So yeah, you never know when another one might come before the end of the season. So there are 2 different things. There's floating row cover and frost cloth. Here they're using the frost cloth. This is quite a bit heavier. You can't see through it quite as easily as the floating row cover. So this is going to protect your plants 4 to 6 degrees at least from the frost. And that could be just enough to keep those plants happy. Now, floating row cover, you use that, it's much lighter. You put that around your tomato cages and such to get an early start on your tomatoes. And that still allows a lot of sunlight penetration to come through, but it protects the plants from insects and wind. We have a lot of wind as spring is coming in, so it does protection with that. The frost cloth, if you've already planted your plants, which that's the only reason to put the frost cloth, you're going to not want to leave them covered for too many days in a row because it's protecting from the frost, but it's not allowing the sunlight to come through. Those plants need that photosynthesis for the carbohydrates and all that. So you don't want to leave it on too long.
Oh, wow. So really the frost cloth, and you mentioned
Floating
road cover. Is the floating road cover more like a hoop house or like a greenhouse, if you will? Like you can use that during the summer really to kind of create your own hemisphere.
I usually use it if I'm starting my tomatoes early spring. So I'm trying to get a jump on planting my tomatoes. And these tomatoes, when we get them, sometimes they're this big.
Right.
So they're little tiny and very delicate. And but we want to get a jump on it because our window of opportunity to grow tomatoes in our area is smaller than like in Kansas and other places. So it allows us to plant our plants and still protect them from wind and insects and such.
And what is a good time to plant your tomatoes?
So a lot of people start planting them in February. If they're gutsy and they're going to be putting, protection and watching the weather. Some people wait until early March, but sometime around there, mid-February to mid-March is usually a very good window.
And I see here you have some microlife.
Yes.
So please talk a little bit more about the fertilization and what this could do for your plant.
So I love this product, but I'm not advertising for it. I just wanted to show. Now, when I do vegetable garden, I think of organic. I try not to push organic or non-organic on people, but you can't go wrong with organic. And with vegetables, you're going to eat them. You're going to share vegetables with your family, your friends. So I try to stick with just organic around my vegetable gardening. And that's mostly what I do is vegetable gardening. So no matter how you buy your fertilizer, there's always 3 numbers on the packet that you buy, whether it's liquid, powder, pellet, no matter what, there should always be 3 numbers. They stand for nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So in most of your vegetable gardening, whether it's spring or fall, you want high nitrogen. So you want that first number to somehow be higher than the other 2 numbers. Not so much with peas and beans, but with most all your other vegetables.
Is there other fertilizations outside of this particular brand that you can use? Like I said, we don't really necessarily promote specific brands, but there is multiple different companies you can utilize.
Many that you can use. I would say most any of your organic fertilizers should be safe. I usually try to go with something I've heard of before. I talk to my friends. One of my mantra is never be ashamed of what you don't know yet. So talk to your friends, talk to the people that know, and maybe they can recommend another fertilizer for you.
Yeah, and Ask a Master Gardener is always available. So
Absolutely.
Anybody can reach out to a Harris County Master Gardener and ask all of these great additional questions if they have them, right?
We have some great master gardeners that are on our phone lines or our internet that can answer good questions.
Absolutely.
Bees. Bees are the lifeblood for most gardens. They're a way that we pollinate all the different fruits and vegetables, so that way we can get all the yummy harvests. There are different types of bees, and I highly recommend if you are interested in, get yourself a beehive. Your garden success rate will go up quite a bit as long as you have lots of pollinators in the area. Something that I recommend for every garden to everybody is the African blue basil. It produces all year long, except in the cold, so protect it if you get a cold snap, but you will find swarms and swarms of bees around it, and they will help attract all sorts of other good, positive creatures to your garden to ensure that you're getting the most harvest with all that work you're doing. Edible landscaping. Thinking about things to do that, do you really need a lawn? Why not grow something that is going to provide some sustenance and flavor for you and your family? There's all sorts of organizations that can help you lay that out, and they will consider the types of sun you're getting and locations. But us at Harris County Master Gardeners, we believe that although lawns are pretty, and I as a golfer, I certainly appreciate nice clean cut grass, but I would rather have something that's delicious that I can use in my cooking rather than that. So keeping an idea on what to do and where to put edible landscaping around your home is always a good idea. Things to think about before you get started: right time, right place. That calendar that we had earlier there is going to tell you when things are going to grow well here in Harris County, what's ideal timing, whether you're using it from seed or a transplant, time, place, and not only that, what species or what type of that plant do you want to be using. Not all tomatoes are going to grow well here in Harris County. Not all peas, not all green peppers, not all different things, because we have our own nuances here, whether it's temperature, bugs, etc., that there are tried and true methods through the Harris County Master Gardeners and our scientific method to show you and share with you the best things for success. I highly recommend talking to a Master Gardener and or purchasing some of these vegetables at their sales, because you know what you're going to be getting has been treated with the most care, and you know it's going to be successful here in Harris County. We have all sorts of resources on our website. Highly recommend checking that out. If you don't see something that you need information on, again, ask Harris County Master Gardeners. Once again, my name is Andrew Johnson. I appreciate your time today. Have a great day, and thanks for joining us.
And now we're going to go back to McGovern's Centennial Gardens with Carrie and Teresa. And they're going to dive deep all about sunlight, a recipe for success with soil.
So, talk to me a little bit about sunlight and what does that really do during this time of year? How much sunlight do you really want for your raised bed garden?
So when you're getting started, you want to find a place that you're going to be getting at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and that's uninterrupted sunlight. So you can see these Centennial Gardens, they're just perfect. There's all open area. There's no trees that are going to block out the sunlight. There's no buildings or houses, whole houses that are going to block out the sunlight. So this is just perfect.
Wonderful. Yeah, so you mentioned raised beds.
Yeah, so we have clay soil in our area, and we can't garden in that clay soil. So most of us that like to do vegetable gardening either do container gardening or raised bed gardening. So with the raised beds, and these are considered raised beds, you really only want to have them as wide as what you can reach into that garden bed without having to set down your hand and push or step in it, because as you set your hand down and push, you're compacting, compressing that soil, which makes it hard for the roots of all your vegetables to reach around and absorb all those nutrients. So I usually recommend at least 8 to 10 inches of soil depth.
So 60 hours of sunlight.
6 to 8.
And then the depth.
So I'm vertically challenged, so I'm probably going to have my garden bed a little bit more narrow than a normal person, a normal height person, and depth about 6 to 8 inches.
Wow, so we can get our carrots growing long and strong.
Yes. People ask about a recipe for starting the soil in that garden bed. So an easy recipe that I've heard that seems to work very well is 2 parts rose soil to 1 part compost. And then each season, and we consider that we have spring vegetable gardening and fall vegetable gardening, I try to incorporate another 5 to 10% more compost each season.
And why compost?
Compost has a lot of nutrition to it. So if you work in a little bit of compost, and you don't have to work it real deep into the soil, just work it in a little bit. It just starts bursting all kinds of nutrition for those vegetable roots to grab onto and feed its plant.
I love that. So what about mulching in the fall? That's a pretty important piece in the fall season, but what about the summer? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's very important in the summer too. So for your spring vegetable gardening, you're planning for the summertime, and it's going to be very hot in the summertime. Things dry out. So when you apply mulch around your vegetables, after you put your vegetables in, you apply it around those vegetables, and it helps hold in moisture. It helps regulate the temperature of the soil. It helps keep unwanted insects and unwanted weeds out. And one of the things I love about it is that if you use organic mulch, it gradually breaks down and becomes compost. And then you just work that in, and the next season you apply more mulch around your plants.
So today we filmed at McGovern Centennial Park, where Herman Park Conservancy, alongside our Harris County volunteers, maintain the family gardens here. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to stop by on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning time, where our master gardeners will be happy to share more information. For more information about Herman Park, please visit hermanpark.org.
Carrie, great presentation, Andrew. I know we've had some really good questions coming in from the chat, so let's take a look at some of those.
Yeah, so one of the questions is, how do you germinate a seed? What are some best methods?
There are different tried and true methods. I personally enjoy pretty simple: paper towel and a Ziploc bag. It doesn't need to be dripping wet; just needs to be like a wrung out sponge. Putting that paper towel inside the bag, putting your seeds in there, putting it in a cool, dark place, and then letting it sit for a couple days and checking on it then. Something that I always recommend people do is make sure you label that Ziploc bag. If not, you might be a little confused exactly what's what when you kind of open it up a couple days later.
Another question is, are all ginger really edible? Can you really eat every kind of ginger?
Absolutely not. There are certain types of ginger that are ornamental, and then others that are edible. Definitely want to stick with just the edible kind. And if you would like to see one of the absolute best locations in the country for a diversity of ginger, please go visit the Mercer Botanical Gardens on the north side of town.
Absolutely. And another question that came in is, what does it really mean when you're saying feeding a fruit or a vegetable? What does that mean?
That is fertilizer. That is getting nutrients to the plant so that they can produce whatever their purpose is, whether that is a citrus tree, whether that's a tomato. We always recommend a organic method. Having routine composting, adding that to the soil is always the first step. And depending on what you're growing, they all have some different feeding needs. There's heavy feeders, there's light feeders, and there's certain things that you can do in soil after you've had a season long of tomatoes or eggplants that are heavy feeders. You might want to put a cover crop on there to give that chance to that soil to rest.
That's great. Watering is also considered feeding, would you say?
Absolutely. The plants are just like us. We need waters to survive.
That's great. Thank you.
Great questions, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Andrew, thank you so much for your presentation. Very, very good. Carrie, as always, thank you so much for the videos on the on-site demonstrations. And thank you, our viewer. We look forward to seeing you again next month with Weeds in the Garden, all about Weeds in the Garden with Maggie Zamora. That's going to be on March 17th. You want to make sure you join us then. Also, we have some great information on plant sales coming up. Please check the chat section right now. Look over to the right of your video. You'll see that some really good links. And until then, we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.